Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Today we're going to talk about beasts. And why are we going to do that? Well, we kind of pick a theme. We take that theme, we stretch it out all week. Then each day we have a different subdivision of that theme. So we had Monster Monday, and we did a little Discord Tuesday. Today is World Building Wednesday. So creatives, community, and kind folks out there, thank you for joining me on our talk about world building with beasts. What are beasts? Beasts, animals, fantastical creatures that are a natural part of your world. Also, there are classmates and collegiates over in Fantasy Grounds College. If you would like to learn about how to use a virtual tabletop. So join their Discord, Fantasy Grounds College Discord. Go over to the left, slide down to the boiler room, and we're hanging out there as well. If you'd like to listen in as we simulcast this show. Now, today, we got to definitely talk about the elephant in the room because, well, the elephants are natural beasts. The elephant in the room is if you're going to build a world with wild beasts, it must be something that is untamed for some reason. I can imagine for whatever reason in your game, whether it's medieval or far modern day or far future, that the population either has not been able to tame the outside world, or for whatever reason, some cataclysmic event has forced the population to travel to another realm, maybe across the seas, or travel through a portal, or escape some sort of devastation, volcanic earthquake, I don't know, blasted land from a fiend summoned from the netherworld, whatever have you. And these people, the vast majority of the people, live in some untamed realm, some untamed world. Also, of course, as player characters are wont to do, there is a quest giver has stumbled into the tavern, given them a map, and they followed it so far away from civilization that there are untamed regions out there. Now, untamed does not necessarily mean that every animal would be violent. We've already talked about native peoples and tribes maybe domesticating these animals or fighting side by side with them, using them for resources, whether it's killing them and using their skin or feathers or exactly. Yeah. But I think world building, going to the elephant comment, with world building, using world building techniques, and pulling things from our real world, we can shape our interaction with other species or other cultures and such by, I don't know, how they interact with the animals around them. Not everyone needs to ride horses. They can ride elephants or mammoths, ostriches, I don't know, mountain goats, camels. There's so many, giant scorpions and giant snakes, like Zevron's favorite likes to join us. You can have so much fun with that. And what a great way to really embrace, like, say, mounted combat in your game, because we don't, it's like, oh, those are the rules we very rarely use. Everyone could brush up on it and get some mounted combat in there. You could do almost as if humanity was in a world of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Yeah, that man, the dire chihuahuas hanging around everybody's ankles, everybody trying to kick them because they're so annoying. Always remind me of I don't know. I'm getting the picture of these dire chihuahuas as cartoon piranhas, but just with four little tiny legs or something. I don't know why I'm thinking of that, but the hell was that? Excuse me. So when we're world building, what we really want to do is have we can pick a couple of handful of traits that really define what the world is like wherever the players go, whether it's about using elements like the weather or how the people are clothed or their behavior. And wild bestial animals are a great way to introduce people to what the world is like. For example, if you describe something like Jonathan cries, dire otters for life. Oh, it's so bad to make something animals that seem so nice and so peaceful to make them dire versions of themselves. Although I suppose that could be quite horrible. Although dire poodles or something would be a little bit bad. But the idea would be, are these let's take birds for example. When you describe birds with colorful feathers and such, people may like a peacock or a toucan or something, tropical with tropical colors. Maybe the players may get the impression that they are in a tropical location, a mirror of our own real world, whereas maybe more hunting species like hawks and falcons and eagles may be in a more mountainous terrain or something. And of course, just using the same stat blocks, but just describing them in a different manner, very much like our series of reskinning. When you reskin something in its particular environment, it will, I feel like it would draw the players in and such. Now, yeah, I think I can't tell if Dead Man's being sarcastic, and I love it. Poodles are one of the more violent breeds of dog. Urgh. Now, when it comes to world building and using beasts and animals and such, I understand that in a lot of games, the default is that a lot of the animals themselves there's an upper level of their threat, right? So that player characters such as 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and other iterations of Dungeons and Dragons, that a lot of your base animals aren't really much of a threat beyond, I'm going to pick a level like 3rd level to 5th. Once you hit like a 5th level or something, like single-handedly, most PCs could take down, say, a rhino or an elephant or something like that. And that probably has a lot to do with how the game system is designed and level systems in general, and our own perception or the game designer's perceptions of animal capabilities versus human capabilities. Because a base level human in Dungeons and Dragons is a 0 level individual, maybe a max of 5, 7 hit points or something, maybe. No stat bonuses, barely a weapon or something. So a lot of those things are based on an individual of that nature, which is why, someone stabbed, a normal human stabbed with a dagger, 0 level human, boom, dead, right? There's not much difference between a dagger and a longsword to them. Player characters are heroes, they go much above that. So to simulate the dangers of these animals, you could reskin or enhance or modify some of the stat blocks, or in a session 0, say to the players like, hey, if you're playing a ranger or a druid, that their capabilities aren't as pronounced as, say, they would be in another setting, just to ramp up some of the dangers and some of the drama and such. Otherwise, I'm sure you would get plenty of, your druidic ranger type characters walking around and going, what, this whole world's filled with wild animals? Cool. We'll never, ever get attacked, ever. I'll just talk them down, maybe you might want to add some other elements into that as well. The other part of world building is the like we talked about, seasonal changes, where animals go through changes such as like mating season, migratory changes, disease and parasites sweeping through a realm. Some other some other events causing animals to act out of nature, like earthquakes or forest fires, mudslides, uh, you know, storms and such also cause animals to act and react in a myriad of ways, either going for shelter or trying to escape or something of that nature. Hurricanes, tornadoes, derechos, and other wind-like effects are also quite important. And based on the region, whether you're in a desert realm, desert environment, a jungle environment, um, mountainous, coastal, will also dictate how those animals act and react in the world. Now, one of the things I love to come up with when it comes to world building is taking something, whether because we did a whole series on world building with Dungeons and Dragons classes. Hey, Pelora, what's going on? I get to rub some Pelora all over me. Now, the idea would be, oh, maybe that's taken the wrong way. No, I think it's taken the right way. So the idea would be like, why is this world overrun? Why are wild beasts and animals the dominant force in this world? And don't make me, because I have mine today. I love it. Okay. Anyway, uh, anyone out there who wants to sponsor me, I can take your product here and make sweet love to it on camera, um, with the right amount of money. Anyway, hawk my wares. I don't know what I'm doing. So, world building. What I imagine exactly. See what you do to me. So here's the idea would be. I love the idea of a society needing to start over. Remember, when we're talking about animals and beasts, dinosaurs fit into that as well. For some reason, in the RPG community, other than say firearms, dinosaurs, you have people severely divided on the dinosaur thing. Some people absolutely positively hate dinosaurs in their sword and sorcery, and others are, love dinosaurs. And maybe it goes back to just being a kid and just being amazed by the idea that these things existed in our world. But uh, a prehistory type of world, one that of course isn't Earth, very much can include a ton of dinosaurs. I mean, there's plenty of stats. You can take a number of stat blocks from other creatures and make them dinosaurs. Of course, renaming the dinosaurs, because the dinosaurs were kind of named based on like Latin and science, so you could come up with other things, very much like, oh, what's the WotC adventure book in Chult? Tomb of Annihilation. I believe it's Tomb of Annihilation is the one where the players go to the tropical island of Chult and adventure an adventure there. And so, even in that game, they have dinosaur races, and the PCs can grab a dinosaur and start racing with them. You got to have yourself some tribal folk riding on the back of a triceratops. I think that would just be awesome. Of course, you got yourself your T-Rexes, and so I can't even name all of the other styles of dinosaurs. I just know there's the short, squat, boxy one with the club-like tail. There's the giant brontosaurs, the huge vegetarian ones that are like 5 times the size of at least 5 times the size of, say, a modern day elephant or a mammoth or something. So you could definitely have a world surrounded by that. And what I love about animals, and what I love about with creatures in general, but especially animals and beasts, is you have a great excuse to do the Russian stacking doll thing with them, the BFF thing, where you have the giant dragon turtle walking through the jungle, and there's a flock of birds sitting on its back and then pecking away at the little microbes and insects that live amongst the moss or fungus or something that's growing on its shell. Or Yeah, I hear you, Plura. Yeah, they are so stupidly big. Yeah, sorry. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I hear you because despite them uh, being herbivores, yeah, despite them being herbivores, I'm sure if you piss one off, uh, it very well will crush you. Especially the fact that scientists have found that a lot of these dinosaurs traveled in herds, and so we could very much ramp up the dangers when using these wild beasts by having them travel in 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 a manner in which we can pull from nature, whether it's herds or flocks or prides or any number of things. Yeah, the Jumanji moment. Yeah, where the animals go wild and and the characters are like trying to duck and dive and hide as the wild animals, run past them or through them. Even hell, there's even the situations from, like, for example, the was After Earth, which I don't think too many people saw, or the the Apes movies, the Planet of the Apes movies, where they can surround a party by climbing through trees and interact with them and such. Jonathan Crime says reskinned dinosaurs make for good dire versions of elephants and stuff. Also, what size categories are dinosaurs in? I don't know. And honestly, I'm not sure if size category is even that pronounced in fifth edition, but I could see doing a house rule where um, a larger creature has advantage, or capital A advantage, when doing die rolls against smaller creatures when it comes to like knocking them down or pushing them or grappling them or something, it ramping up their fear factor. And someone I remember being in the chat even suggested to increase or decrease the die rolls based on the size of the creature. So an example would be if you have a long sword and you're a medium creature and you hit a medium creature, it does a die 8. But if you're hitting a large creature, it does a die 6. And if you're hitting a huge creature, it does a die 4. And then above that would be either maybe you could do a 1-2 or just 1 point of damage or something. And the same would go for all other die rolls. That's pretty extensive. That's an extensive house rule. But I could see if you really, really, really wanted to scale, and Puller says, surely you just scale health on that sort of thing. You could do that as well, scaling up or scaling down. Um, yeah, it does to me that house rule does sound a little complicated. Well, it sounds complicated, but everything sounds complicated till you do it a couple of times. I've never incorporated that house rule. Someone else came up with that in the chat many moons ago. But again, if you wanted to stay away from some of the more fantastical elements, even though human beings running around a prehistoric land is kind of fantastic in and of itself. But I agree with Pelora and Jonathan in the sense that you could reskin some dinosaurs to make dire versions of creatures. I think you could even go even further and reskin, say, dragons and some of your larger creatures, and larger fantastical creatures, maybe edit out some of the breath weapon type of abilities and make them dinosaurs as well. So you could, and of course this, you got to say it, since we're broadcasting on Fantasy Grounds college, that with the Fantasy Grounds you can go in and just modify a stat block. You copy it and then start ramping up, say, damage potentials and such. And yeah. James Lindell says, I like Cholt's undead version of them too. Yeah, undead dinosaurs spewing out, vomiting up zombies and skeletons is pretty nasty. But what a great thing, right? That's basically Russian stacking some of the elements of your creatures, right? An undead dinosaur. So you go ahead, you take yourself a T-Rex and you reskin it and say, okay, it's also undead. So it's got the undead moniker to it. Maybe you start to snatch some of the abilities of some of the undead creatures, like say a zombie or skeleton, give it that special ability, maybe some of its resistances or immunities. And then you stack on top of that, oh, it's vomiting up other undead people, and there you have your Russian stacking doll, and you could do that with a lot of creatures. I brought up the top of the head, the dragon turtle with birds on its back. And I ache sometimes our relationship and our encounters with some of our NPCs and monsters, like walking in on someone that's on the toilet, right? It's a little bit uncomfortable, but they're in the middle of something. And it's like, do you sit there and wait for them to pinch a loaf, or do you walk out the door, right? The person that's surprised, like, do you continue with the grunt, or do you pause long enough and hold it up inside of you, right? It's a little bit uncomfortable, but my point with making fun of the scatological humor is that we can bring our world to life by having players encounter things in our world while they're in the middle of doing something, in the middle of eating, in the middle of mating, in the middle of travel, or gathering supplies for a nest, or finding shelter, or suffering from a wound or a disease, or trapped, or literally wandering off into the wild and dying off, or literally catching its last breath as some kind of parasite eats it away from the inside out, or other animals, circling around another dying animal and waiting for it to fall over so the vulture-like creatures could eat it. And maybe there's hyena type, a pack of creatures has surrounded the slowest member of a herd, and they're ripping it to shreds when the PCs come along. And role playing that event as the GM or the dungeon master, the game master, we can role play that. Are the animals, maybe the animals aren't hungry because they're ripping the flesh off of this dead beast, right? But they're afraid instinctually for the PCs to take their food away. So do they growl and try to threaten and scare away the PCs? Do they chase after them and nip at the PCs' ankles and hope that they run? Do they try to drag their food away, and 3 or 4 of them stay there and growl while two or three others try to drag it around the corner of a tree or something? Like, do they pee on it and hope for the best? I mean, what happens? James Lindell says, and maybe some of these big dinosaurs might not be dangerous, but needed for faster transportation. Of course, you got to build the bamboo platform with a sunshade over top of it, with people riding on the back of the brontosaur. You got to do the Flintstones thing, man. Ride on the back of the dinosaur. You got to do that, even the if you're not a Flintstones person, because you might be too young. Let's go with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings and and Gimli's one-liner of that only counts as one after Legolas basically destroys one of those super giant mammoths with like 80 people riding on the back of it and stuff. I mean, yeah, you gotta do that. You gotta have the land birds, the flightless birds, and riding on the back of them as well. Progenitors to like axe beaks. Take yourself a bunch of domesticated axe beaks, and the PCs get to buy some of those and ride them, because that's just how you get around. Much like ostrich riding, I suppose, would be today, or something, or kiwi riding. I don't think kiwis grow that big, but Pillar-ist says some of the biggest ones I would have thought you just have to avoid. You're not going to kill it, but it won't do much to you if you leave it alone. Kiss habit. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. Emus. Yes. But, and of course, we can reflavor any of those type of animals, right? Their colors, their sizes, their behaviors, even little plug. I have a whole section of that in the plains and grasslands for the cinematic environments. Plug. So, but yeah, of course you definitely have to start out, if you're a game master and you're like, man, I really want to add this into the game. How do I get my players to embrace it? Have your NPCs do it first. Have them meet strangers on the road that are riding, flightless birds through the primordial soup of this world. Have them uh, flying on the back of griffins in your world, if that's a thing that exists, uh, in and around this prehistoric climate or what have you. I'm not sure why I'm stuck on the prehistoric thing, because you could very easily have an adventure that's in a vast desert. Maybe there's a desolate landscape, much like Dark Sun, is a perfect example of taking a wild region and inserting a lot of wild animals. I know we haven't brought up plants because that's going to be its own thing. Maybe combined with plants and oozes. I'm not really certain if I want to combine those two, but plants count into that as well, the man-eating plants and such. So if you take something like Dark Sun, and you want to have, although Dark Sun technically isn't a classic desert of sand, it's actually dust, but because of the life literally pulled from the land. But you could create the same thing, or even if you wanted to do a Honey I Shrunk the Kids type of adventure where the PCs are okay. Either the PCs are technically like 6 inches tall, or the PCs are normal sized and everything around them is super huge. You could do the same thing by using giant sized versions of animals to represent the palm sized versions of those same animals in our present day. So, a small spider or a small rat or a small mantis in to us would be huge size to the PCs, or maybe they just happen to be 500 times their normal size when the PCs meet them. So you could definitely do that, and of course, reskinning things. Right? Is there a giant mantis stat block? No, but you could find like a giant beetle or spider or something and just reskin it that way. Giant crab probably would work in those instances. And if you're someone who loves who has a desire for different breeds of, like, say, insects or cats, lupines, felines, dinosaurs, or something. Here's a great way for you to go. Oh man, I get to throw all my information in there and be that guy, right? Be that chick that's like, I'm so into dinosaurs, I want to use them and add them into the game. But of course, again, Pelora talks about some of the biggest ones are you would just avoid. And who's to say that an adventure hook doesn't start from that? If you kill a brontosaurus and something kills it, maybe it eats something, a parasite that you know destroys it from the inside. Tribal people kill it. Maybe there's something else in the world that is very dangerous the PCs haven't encountered yet, that you see it mauled to death and fallen over, and the PCs are looking at each other like, it's like 5 tons and something mauled this to death. What the hell happened? And again, sorry, in the background, that's a cat in another room downstairs grabbing its toy. So I apologize if you can hear that. And she's also deaf, so she can't hear me tell her to bring it to me. Yeah, cats. Darius, what's going on there? Slight plug. There are on the channel, there's a number of episodes of the Creators Conclave where Darius, Jana, and I have talked about different, using, at the time, was current events and reshaping them, reskinning them into adventures and things. And since we were across the pond, we brought up things that were happening in our different sections of the world. So if you want to go back and check out some of the Creators Conclave talks, you can go ahead and do that. And I believe most of them were like 2 hours long or something. Plur says, when whales die in the ocean, it's a big deal. Like a whole community of things show up to eat it. And that's the thing. For me, that's a great tool to throw in your back pocket as a dungeon master if you really want to get your players moving, right? Brontosaurus dies. Okay, PCs go, okay, well, it's dead. Whatever, let's move on. But it's going to bring scavengers. It's going to bring so many flying scavengers, land-based scavengers, things laying eggs inside of it, predators, and the smell is going to be bad as it decomposes. There's going to be so many things that are going to show up drawn to the area for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure plenty of predators are going to show up just to eat the things that are going to show up to scavenge off of the body. Again, stacking one threat on top of the other as the PCs are maybe, do the whole I'm going to loot the body kind of thing. Now, of course, brontosaurs aren't carrying treasure with it, but you get my point, right? When PCs come across dead bodies, they're like, "Yay, let's loot the body," but we can instill a little bit of verisimilitude, a little bit of realism, or at least how it realistically works in this world, and have some of those things show up. Whether who knows, maybe this is what draws Atiogs towards something, or after huge battles, rust monsters come out of the woodwork, right? Where you have yourselves armies of, weapons and swords and things. Who's to say they don't show up? So in this context, the idea of inserting the chances of disease and rot grubs and stir and vultures and ravens circling overhead, or pterodactyls if you want to go to the dinosaur direction, and packs of dire wolves, and so on and so forth. And I'm completely aware that some animals did not exist during the period of time of dinosaurs. So I get that. So you don't have to be a well actually out there, but adding in saber-toothed tigers along the same line as T-Rexes or something, sure, go for it. Why not? Jonathan Crine says, the only thing about beasts I don't like is that they tend to be pretty low level. A tiger is way scarier than a CR1 creature. I agree with you. And I think that's one of the many games tend to relegate these beasts to, they've made them so mundane that the excitement of encountering them in the first place has kind of been filtered out. So my suggestion is to, and this is definitely a session 0 thing, where you say, listen, I want to have this low magic. Yeah, you might meet some tribal people, like shamanistic witches and herbalist type people, but I want to have this prehistoric Conan-esque loincloth-ish kind of world, and I want you guys to be involved in it. Or, hey, you guys come from a more populous world, but you've come into this wild region. Maybe there's a continent in your setting that you want to use that's hundreds of miles wide, and you'd have all of these strange and wild beasts. And you say to them, listen, I understand that you've memorized the monster manual, but you're going to meet far more powerful versions of these creatures. And so you could take something like, say, a tiger or a saber-toothed tiger stat block or something, and then start ramping up the hit points, the AC, some of the skills, the bonuses, some of the dies of damage and such, maybe enhance some of the movement, get to a certain point where the size increases as well. I have, as a player, I would have little problem with that, especially if you just say, hey, guess what? You remember how a tiger is like a CR1? Yeah, you're gonna fight like a CR8 tiger in my world, because it's like 30 feet at the shoulder or something. I find that to be perfectly acceptable. Now, if you don't foreshadow some of these things, where a creature is far above and beyond, has capabilities far above and beyond what is normally expected of it. Prue, hey, what's going on? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us here. Of course, today we're talking about beasties, animals, wild animals. Some of them arcane. So let's get into let's slide away from the prehistoric and get into some of the arcane creatures. Now, throughout mythology, we understand that, say, things like minotaurs and pegasi and unicorns have a divine origin to them. But we can definitely talk about having, a Pegasus being a natural part, griffins, hippogriffs, hell, axe beaks and things being a natural part of the ecology. And so you could take a creature. I don't know. I don't think chimera really fits in there, but I think you could take a number of creatures. Dragon turtles are a perfect example where it is fantastical, having its little steam breath and its giant size. It's got a turtle shell to it and whatnot, but it might be part of a natural. It may be a natural part of the environment, much like, say, you could reskin a Tarrasque and go, yeah, the gods didn't make the Tarrasque to destroy the world. It just happens to be that it's a giant-sized version of a creature that exists in nature. It's the Godzilla of the world. It just happens to live there. No big deal. Pelora says part of it is how powerful the PCs tend to be. A level 7 D&D character will be way beyond actual human limits. A tiger would just eat my face, and I'd have to make peace with that. Yeah. Now, something that's been forgotten over time is that in AD&D, I want to say that second edition, between 7th and 10th level, most player characters retired because levels beyond that made them superhuman. So it's the idea of literally retiring a character at level 7 or 8 or 9 is completely forgotten. People are like, oh, I'm going to 20th level. But there was this idea that if you went beyond those levels, that you were encountering things that were far well above and beyond the human norms, that it made sense that a 12th level fighter could take on a dragon with their little pipsqueak sword, because they could literally slay things like that, as opposed to being crushed under its claw. So I think there is a dichotomy between, I'm just a normal human, but also I can beat the ass of a real tiger without flinching. Is kind of a strange thing to think about, but because the game doesn't really tell you that, oh, you know what, when you're at this level, it kind of does in a Dungeon Master's Guide, but it's like, yeah, when you're at this level, mundane things like tigers and elephants and stuff, gorillas just have no effect on you. Like you could just slay one without even blinking or something. Yeah. Prue says, yeah, we'll want to let PCs see those tracks and maybe some half-eaten prey before they see the actual animal. I brought that up, and I love the idea of leaving clues and making the world a real place where they live. You're going to have to find some animal scat, animal tracks, animals calling out to each other in the deep woods or jungles or something. Animals have certain sounds, especially birds. They call out to each other. Wolves howl, and bark and growl and things like that. Animals make noises. They use their animals mark territory. Whether maybe one of the PCs goes up and smells a tree, and it's like, we've just crossed into the coyote territory, right? Seeing a lot of that, I think, would allow the players also to embrace the fact that, and maybe add some spotlight to those druidic or outdoorsy characters, your rangers and such, your rogue scouts, and give them a little something to do. And also, this is a way for you to modulate the encounters as well. If they come across one or two animals, it could be those animals call out for others to help it because it's been surrounded. Maybe the PCs see a 20-foot bird, flightless bird, and it screams out, and then the PCs don't realize that it's actually a baby, and the 50-foot mommy comes around the corner, right? So there's also the idea of, say, hives, insect hives. We know in our own world, if you disturb an insect hive, they get quite angry to try to protect the queen or protect their hive or something. So again, PCs are going along in the wild. They see some giant ants, maybe they're the size of your fist, the size of your thigh, or the size of a small bus, and they're walking along, grabbing leaves and doing their own thing, ignoring the PCs, until maybe one or more of the PCs does something to offend it or steal its food or other supplies it's taking back. And then lo and behold, the ant hive, I mean, the nest of ants comes out after the PCs, the colony of ants comes after the PCs because they've done something wrong. Or PCs jump on the back of the ants who really don't care and lead the PCs down into an ant hive for whatever reason, right? Animals and encounters don't necessarily have to be violent, but they could be strange. Um, let's go through the ant colony idea. Maybe the ants take the PCs down into their colony and then dump the PCs into a pile of where they're going to end up going to collect some food items like from leaves and other morsels that are tasty, maybe pieces of moss or something, and dumps the PCs into a 50-foot tall pile of food that they're going to gather later, with each ant being stupid, but the whole hive being smart, right? So, and maybe that in itself leads to some other things that the ants pulled something down in there from some other tribe or whatever, or some people are trapped down in the bottom of this pit and can't get out and everything, right? So yeah, proofs. Proust says a lot of animals make marks on trees and ground to with claws and antlers as well. They sure do. Here in Ohio, we get a lot of deer, and like I've got a huge uh, deer antler that the antlers of deers fall off so that it can make room for the new growth to come in. And I've got a fairly big one. It's about yay big. It's got a couple of spikes on it and stuff. Deer antler. So yeah, you can find things like that. Snake skins. What are some other things you can find out there that are cat claws? Cats scratch their claws to get the old shell, whatever, skin, I don't know what you call it, off of their claws so that the new claws can come in and become even stronger, kind of like how we would cut our nails so that the new growth can come in. The same thing as well. So yeah, there's plenty of 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 things you can leave behind as clues to what is available. Um, Pelor says this is a very good horror trick. You don't want to reveal the beastie right off the bat if you want it to be scary. Now, James Lindell thought about, yes, moving to other planes of the gods and such, talking about other planes. Before we get to other planes, because other planes might have different rules on what beasties exist in those other planes, creatures like one of my favorite, the boulet, the land shark, could be a natural part of the environment. Maybe something, purple worms, some things burrow from underground, or there's you could literally put legs on a real shark. I don't know if you really want to do that, but you could very well, in your setting, it could be very arcane in the nature of how things operate, so that the wild animals in your world would never exist in our world, but they exist in yours. Yeah, Tremors. Sarlacc pits, right? It's the Sarlacc on Tatooine, bring up another Star Wars reference because I have to, is a natural part of the environment, right? As a matter of fact, many of the creatures in Star Wars are just like, it's just a natural thing. So if you're playing, I had planned on doing this for Future Friday, but if you plan on doing something that's very fantastical in your world, yeah, you could definitely just have these things, surprise the PCs in a manner in which they are not used to in our regular day. Yeah, Jonathan says, hey, for world building, how do you guys make new beasts in terms of crunch? I think for making new beasties, we have to think about, first of all, let me rewind here a little bit. First of all, there's plenty of things in our own world that you guys are having some fun in the chat. I gotta see how this comes about. So I'm gonna keep on talking, but you guys do your thing. So one of the things is that there are plenty of creatures in our own world. And if you, Harry, hey, if you increase their size 100-fold, they'd be really nasty. Yeah, there's small insects, there's small creatures. There are otters are innocent enough. Otters, raccoons, and things. Some of these creatures are pretty small and um, insignificant in its dangers, but if you increase their size, they would be very, very, very harmful. Flies are another thing. Don't flies vomit up their stomach acid to decompose their foods and then slop the stuff up? A 20-foot fly vomiting up acid could very easily be a reskinned Ankheg in fifth edition, right? Things like ticks, yep, ticks and fleas. Starfish. The Sarlacc from Star Wars was not native. Seriously, dead man. Seriously. No, I didn't know that. I don't. I, I, I was also thinking of not just the Sarlacc. What's the other creature um the one Luke fought? He got dumped down into Jabba's pit. What was that creature? I don't remember. But the point being is that creatures like the Sarlacc and the thing that Luke Skywalker fought down in the pit and other things are native to some place. So the Rancor, thank you, Dead Man. Always kind and always like. I'm sure Dead Man's doing the head shake, like Dead Man shaking his skeletal head, like, really? Do I have to pull out my tome of knowledge and open it up and smack you with it? Yeah. But again, going back to creating beasties, I think we can think of them as like, well, how do they eat? How do they hunt? How do they survive? You can come up with about 3 or 5 different elements you can pull from. Do they move, and how do they move? What do they eat? Where do they live? Maybe pick one or more predators that would affect them, or are they an apex styled predator? That kind of thing. Are they camouflaged? Do they need to be camouflaged? Maybe play around with some of the breeding habits. Is it like separated male female? Is it an asexual creature like some frogs or lizards are? Things like that. And then after you do that, you could do things like, does it protect its young? Does it lay 1,000 eggs and leave it behind? Does it hibernate? Does it lay in wait, or is it very aggressive? Is it more concerned with sniffing the backpacks of the PCs and stealing it, right? Can you milk it? Exactly. So I'm just getting the image of old Luke Skywalker spraying green milk into his face. Yes, drinking the green milk. So yes, because there is green milk in blue milk, although technically the green milk is milk and the blue milk technically doesn't necessarily need to be milk in the first place. We just call it milk, but whatever. Yeah. Is it a tournament species, or will its mate come to its defense in 3, 2, 1? Exactly. How does it defend its territory? We brought up the idea of like horned and antlered creatures tend to assert dominance by ramming each other. Sarlacc. Yeah, thank you, David. StarWarsFandom.com wiki, the Sarlacc and where it came from. Yeah, I mean, we can insert those kind of things into our world if we want to make it very fantastical and just say it's a natural part of the world, much like inserting dangerous plants and oozes and things. If we want to really embrace the primordial aspect of this world, having non-sentient pools of oozes would make perfect sense, right? Also, with the BFF type of creatures, are there giant spiders that carry around with it swarms of baby spiders on its back? Are there We often don't include baby versions and elderly versions of animals when it comes to encounters. So there, you could very well have a pride of saber-tooth sized lions, with the lion male taking care of, say, seven of its female members, protecting them, while those female members have maybe another 12 young, and the young might be the stats of the young might be tigers, the females might be saber-toothed tigers, and the male lion might have its stats bumped up, maybe +2 or 3 to its AC, double the hit points, an extra die or three of its damage attacks or something, things like that, right? Blue milk is bantha milk. I didn't know it was real milk, or maybe I'm not that much of a fan. Bad DBJ, bad. You're not a real fan, boy. Yeah. Polaris says there's some weird lore about how it keeps people alive for 1,000 years while digesting them. I've heard that, and I was like, well, that's weird because people don't live that long. So I'm not, maybe the stomach acids kind of place things in stasis while it eats them, which isn't, here's another thing that I think is a great storytelling tool. Yeah, it's just like the parsec line, right? But here's a great storytelling tool. Okay, every encounter doesn't need to be roll initiative, you kill it or it kills you, right? Let's go towards, I know we're talking about Star Wars here, and I guess we should have saved it for Future Friday, but I guess it'll come up later on. The idea is Luke got his ass handed to him by getting smacked in the head on Hoth, right? And then wakes up with his feet frozen in the ceiling and his sword, his laser sword, out of hand's reach. There are plenty of monsters, both sentient and animal, that do not necessarily consume its kill right away. Now, there are plenty that will, hyena types and such. There are many of animals that will jump on the weakest member and let the others run away. I always like to pick on the halfling hanging around in the back and gets pounded on, pounced on by 6 hyena-like creatures, and the gnolls that are their handlers, while the other PCs run away. Now, would someone find that to be a little bit unfair? Like, hey, I can't believe that you're focusing all the animals are focusing their attacks on me, unless it's been foreshadowed already, i.e. by the giving that information to the ranger or the druid beforehand, like, ooh, you smell that? And everyone's like, no, did somebody fart? Like, no. We're in the territory of, come up with a name other than hyena, right? Maybe they're called pack fangs or something. And like, we've got to watch out for the pack fangs because they're known to jump on the weakest member. So we've got to stay in a circle, or whatever the case might be. Don't fall behind because they surely will tackle you and snatch you or something. So but those are creatures that will consume their prey right away. They will, snatch it around the throat and kill it, i.e. when a player goes to 0 hit points, they will continue chewing on it. There's the opposite as well. Spiders spinning webs around its prey, the creature freezing its prey's feet up into the ceiling to wait for them later. There's yeah. Oh yeah, I remember they talked about Boba Fett escaping from the Sarlacc stomach for a number of novels, which that seems to be the limitation of Star Wars. Wow, that's a great visual of a character. Sure did punk out. Prue says, I've made territorial oozes once. That was good fun. If the PCs stayed out of the territory, they were fine. They actually snuck by 2 of them fighting at one point. Yeah. I was wondering if somebody would catch that. Like, how dare you say laser sword? It's a lightsaber. It's a lightsaber. Strike me down now. I can feel your hate out there, creators and community. So you could extend an interaction with some of the with your creatures by having them do things like taking them back to their nests or wrapping them in webs or spewing some kind of gel over the body, and like some kind of like hardening amber, and the creature grabs it and takes it away or something. Maybe grabbing it and hauling the wrapping something around their feet and hauling the PCs up into the trees. Uh, yeah, like sorry. I was trying to make my speech and scare you. Whew. I got that out of my system. Whew. So you could extend an encounter by going like, okay, this isn't supposed to be a deadly encounter. This is just supposed to be, I need to order myself a squirrel. I'm gonna get. I think I'm gonna order myself a stuffed squirrel just for these these things here, since we're coming towards the end of our hour anyway. But as a matter of fact, playing with the idea that one PC gets swarmed or attacked by a number of creatures, I think faint, yeah, exactly, Harry. There is the idea that some, without a session zero, some players would find that to be perfectly reasonable, right? Hey, the rogue scout decided to go off on their own, the ranger decided to go follow them, they get attacked by a swarm of beetles, and they get attacked by a pack of wolves on their own because they separated from the encampment or what have you. Whereas other players might find that to be unfair because it's not gamified where equal attacks go to everyone. So I think in a session zero, saying something like, hey, listen, in this prehistoric world, in this wild world, in this world of beasts and animals and such, that they will be acting in the nature prescribed to them, much like a pack of hyenas will attack the weakest member or the member separated from the group, as opposed to, say, a giant falcon will snatch up one of the PCs and fly away with them to take them back to the nest, or to take them and start to try to pick away at to break the hardened outer shell of their plate mail to get at the meaty insides, right? The tasty stuff on the inside. So, but part of me feels like portraying those creatures, despite the fact that they don't speak, that they have an animalistic instinct, as realistic in the context of the world, I think would come across well, especially if you are consistent with the way you portray them, even though their behaviors may not be consistent with each other. Like hunting birds will snatch up fish and rabbits and field mice and fly away with them. The fact that they do the same thing to a PC because they're 20 have a 20-foot wingspan and they're 20 times larger than their base animal, I think makes a lot of sense to me. So I would definitely do that. Hyenas, Prue says hyenas are very good thieves too, along with a lot of birds and lizards. And Plora says, yeah, I believe lions steal from cheetahs a lot, since cheetahs burn up all their energy chasing something down. That's another thing as role-playing animals. Cheetahs, if I'm not mistaken, I believe also in many zoos, they put they put dogs with cheetahs because cheetahs have behaviors that are have a closer relationship to dogs than cats in terms of hanging in packs and things like that. Harold Drix is leaving off. All right, baby. Love you. What is a lot of marsupials are thieves. And again, being thieves, they're stealing. They want it or need it. Small pieces of equipment, something that smells good. The PC draped in blood is another thing. If animals smell the blood and gristle that's left on the barbarian, who absolutely positively, yeah, I will tell my wife that you said goodbye. Those are the kind of things I think are often underserved as well. You know, PCs. Let's say in your game, the PCs need to hunt for food because they don't have access, or you limited their access to making arcane, summoning food and water or good berries or something, and they have to hunt their food down. It could be, hey, I'm a great archer. I'm, I'm going to shoot this, I don't know, wildebeest from, 500 paces away. Boom, you kill it. Okay, I'm going to go pick it up. And a pack of hyenas see it fall and they start eating it, dragging it away. You're like, what the hell? Wait a minute. You're like running after it while these other creatures go and steal it away, right? So it's possible that during the course of adventuring that these things will steal something. I could imagine a lot of like bonobos and chimpanzees and things stealing things from an encampment while the PCs are out adventuring, and they come back to their camp and something's going through their stuff. Deer do the same thing. Deer and bear do the same things. Raccoons are brilliant. They're notorious for getting into trash cans and such. So I can imagine them sneaking into a player character's backpack or three, stealing something there. So yeah, being thieves as well. Also, when moving along in a particular region, the animals may also give evidence to other hazards, right? Dead animals next to a watery source, or dead animals that are near, say, a blackened wood or something, and someone may say, hey, listen, don't eat the fruit here. We see a lot of dead animals. Maybe there's something rotten or something necrotic growing in this part of the jungle or what have you. Pillar-ist says elephants mine salt. I've never heard that. I've never heard that elephants. I can imagine it though, because elephants are brilliant as well. Hell, elephants in a watery source cleaning themselves, spraying water on their bodies, just washing themselves off. Animals heading towards a seasonal change to obtain shelter and nutrients, such as the dry season ending and the flood season beginning, and all the animals going towards the now full rivers that were once dry gullies and such, right? Bruce says, I need more stealing animals and monsters in my game. Yeah, birds steal crap too. Don't mess with a seagull. You go on vacation, do not feed at all a seagull at all. Although I know some people try to kill them by throwing up Alka-Seltzer tabs, because the Alka-Seltzer tabs expand in their stomachs. But anyway, seagulls are notorious for stealing food off of a table, right? A 20-foot tall seagull would definitely steal some horses, or whatever, or plant matter, maybe, if they're not stealing meat or something. Jonathan Crine says, speaking of thieves, when looting animals, it helps to world build the worth of various animals' parts and products. Absolutely, bone, the meat, skin. We brought up offhandedly. Water skins are made from, I believe, the stomachs or bladders of animals. Lots of animal parts are used for meats, for medicinal purposes, whether it's ground up bone, the eyes of an animal, definitely the skin or the fur. Of course, we would have to, treat it in some kind of way, which might include some skill rolls, take some time or effort to do those things. And there might be a time crunch involved. Also, if you want to do away with metal in your world, such as a world like Dark Sun, bone, petrified woods, treated woods are very good to use. Yeah, Prue says teeth and claws and feathers are good too. Absolutely. Organs to harvest, of course, and to embrace some of the more extraordinary elements. Maybe there are animals that have very powerful poisons, medicinal effects, enhancements, seeing the eating a stew with its eyes allows you to see the future. Eating the pituitary gland or adrenal gland of this very fast land animal enhances your speed. Eating the heart of this creature makes you as tough as it is, giving you, I don't know, temporary hit points or increased armor class or something. Um, you could even reskin the weapons and armor in your world. So there is no plate mail and chain mail. Those things don't exist, but certain types of hides of certain animals do exist. There are shields made out of beetle carcasses and turtles. There are Harry Schur says, because a bird is large does not equate heavy lifting ability. That's true. Hollow bones. I was just overemphasizing the idea of like a giant rock could maybe lift a horse or an elephant based on the fact that a smaller, say a hawk, can snatch a fish out of the water, right? But you could, how do I say this? You could over realisticize your world and take all the fun out of it. I think it's kind of cool to have birds lift huge ass heavy things. So maybe that's just me. Even if it's for short periods of time, right? Giant rock sweeps down, snatches PC, grapples it, flies away. PC says, "I'm going to strike the claw to get out of its claw," and as the DM is like, "Sure." You do realize it flew into the air. You're gonna, maybe I don't want to hit the claw. Maybe I'm going to wait for it to go back to its nest, right? So there are some of those limits as well. Jonathan Klein says, I was also thinking of giant spider silk and such as quest objectives. Absolutely. Harvesting spider silks, harvesting not just eggs, but the residual of animals, snake skins, unfortunately, the ivory from elephants and such. And the PCs could be fighting against people that are killing animals just for maybe one specific thing, like ivory or clubbing seals or something like that. And the PCs are like, hey, like, I understand we have to kill these things, but you're going a little overboard. Like you're not applying the proper honor to these creatures. And of course, we haven't talked about the more arcane elements of like clerics and warlocks and shamans and witches and things, just reskinning those character classes into the world. A fighter, instead of being dressed in chainmail and having a sword and shield, might be, they have a cloak or leathery hide or something of a certain creature that equates chainmail in the world. And, they're carrying a shield made from a turtle. And swords aren't a very common thing, but maybe they use weapons made of bone or wood or stone or something like that. So we've hit the hour mark. I'm kind of powering down a little bit. You guys know what to talk about. Tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday. One of my favorites. Third Pillar Thursday, talking about the third pillar of exploration. Please join me then. But guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys being here as well. Have a great one. I'll see thee later.